Now, recently, Mexico elected a new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, the former, I guess she's the sitting mayor of Mexico City. She'll be inaugurated on October 1st. Now, we've been dealing a lot with the water debt in Mexico and what it owes us. Do you think that a new administration will actually help with negotiation? Will you have an easier time talking to a new president?
I hope so. I have a meeting with the incoming president, Sheinbaum, in about 2 weeks from now. So I intend to bring up the issues that I've been critical on in Mexico, the insecurity along our borders and in the interior of Mexico. I'm going to bring up the water debt that is still hasn't been paid, and other issues that I think are concerns for us.
Okay, so now there was an attempt to pass an appropriations bill that would penalize Mexico financially for not paying the water bill. Can you explain what that
Yeah. So the reality of it is it's a $7.5 million penalty. That is less than a drop in the bucket.
Wow.
For the issue that we're having. The farming industry has been impacted billions of dollars in South Texas. And the water repayment, I mean, they'd be willing to pay us double that to not pay us the water. So $7.5 million is really symbolic. I think there's a lot more we can do in terms of pressuring Mexico to pay the water debt. I think a sanction on just one of their industries would do it. You know, if we punish them with a couple of $1 billion, maybe that would make a difference. But $7.5 million, I'm glad we did it because we needed to do something. But I think more than anything, it's a symbolic gesture. And now that elections are over in Mexico, I think we're going to start seeing some water repayments.
How often are you in contact with members of the Mexican government?
I'm in contact pretty regularly. I was in Mexico City a few months ago with my Republican colleague, Dan Crenshaw. And we met with a foreign minister. We met with Mexican officials. He and I have a task force on combating Mexican cartels. So we have a pretty close working relationship with many government officials. And it's problems that are on both sides of the border that we try to work on.
So do you think that people in Washington don't fully understand Mexican government and the Mexican culture, so they don't understand how to negotiate with them, and so they're probably perhaps ignoring the water debt issue?
Well, that's a pretty safe bet. Now, you got to think that the water debt issue impacts South Texas. It doesn't impact the entire United States. So you don't have members of Congress from the entire country pressuring the administration or pressuring Secretary Blinken to pressure Mexico. So you have, you know, a handful of members of Congress, and I think the way to get it done, though, is pressuring Mexico through sanctions, through diplomatic measures. I met with the foreign minister a few months ago. I intend to meet with her again when I'm back in Mexico City in 2 weeks. She promised me they were going to start releasing water after this election. So I'm going to go back and say, hey, you need to start making good on this promise. Yeah,
Congressman Cuellar, when we had him on, was also saying that, you know, once the elections are over, Mexico is going to be more likely to make payments. So are you expecting that, or do you think?
I really am. I don't know if they get to where we need to be by the end of the year, because one thing that we need to make clear is they don't owe us a drop of water yet, but at the end of December, they need to be 100% paid up, and I don't think that there'll be enough water for them to do that. A couple of years ago, they had some reservoirs filled in Chihuahua. They should have been releasing water at the time. They didn't do that, and they've built more reservoirs since the treaty was written in 1944. It was a very poorly written treaty. You know, I can tell you that if I had been the lawyer representing the United States in that treaty, that would not be the treaty that would be in place right now, because we give them 5 years to pay us 100% of the water. I think there should be requirements where there's interval payments in year 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and ultimately 5, then allowing them to wait 5 years and they just wait for that huge storm on year 3 or 4 and then pay us back 100% of the water debt. That's not the way it was meant to be.
Yeah, those vagaries, there's the legal term, the devil is in the details, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when these things are vaguely written, you know, a lot can be slipped in. So now, would you think that there would be a movement that maybe you could create on Capitol Hill to rewrite that treaty?
Yeah, so I have a plan. In 2026, we're going to revisit our trade agreement, USMCA, with Mexico. And I think that's an opportunity to renegotiate and at least certainly revisit this treaty that is outdated. You know, if Mexico paid us 100% of our water right now, we would still be about 30% short from where we were in 1985.
Wow.
So, you know, whether you're a climate change denier or not, the fact is we have a lot less water right now than we did in 1985. Farmers have had to readjust. They're going to have to start farming differently. They're going to have to start farming different products to deal with the lack of water. And also, we need to keep pressuring water payments from Mexico, but we need to get better at capturing and conserving water. If you look at the water canals here in South Texas, most of them don't have any lining, they don't have covers, so we lose a lot of water to seepage and evaporation. And if you see other states in the country, they're way ahead of us in capturing and conservation, and I think it's time for Texas to catch up on this issue.